So I was thinking about the kind of people that go to Glastonbury and what it is that Glastonbury itself represents, because everyone can't help but notice that it is incredibly pale at Glastonbury. Every single year, this is a distinctly white English phenomenon. And I think it's worth delving into that a little bit, because actually I know a lot of people, or at least I know a handful of people who either go regularly or have been regularly when they were a bit younger to Glastonbury. And I think it's worth talking about it, because one thing that I think young people now especially don't really do is actually go to festivals. And when I was young, we used to go to festivals quite a lot. Like, I personally really liked the Reading Festival, where they had, like, my favourite bands at this festival. And so there were some just absolute banging lineups when I was young. My wife, when she was young, liked Download, because she's a bit more into sort of heavier metal than that. And Glastonbury was always a kind of wishy-washy prog rock Britpop kind of thing. And I despised it. Frankly, I didn't like Glastonbury at all. But one thing that it was very evident, and it always has been very evident about Glastonbury, is it's always been very middle class. And all of the kind of the big bands that go there are the kind of middle class bands, Blur, Pulp, and things like this, right? Like these bands are of a time, a place, and a very specific segment of the population. So I wrote a thread on Twitter that we'll go through, because I think this really exemplifies the point. I wrote, zoom in on any crowd photo in Glastonbury, you'll see the profile of the attendees is basically middle-aged, middle-class, and middle Englander. There is no possibility of rebellion, for they are the system itself. They populate the desk jobs that make things work. Now, a few midwits are like, they're not making things work. No, make things work for the system, right? They are the people who populate the HR departments, or the petty bureaucracy. They are the people who are, again, the sort of very bourgeois, systemic, the people who are uncomfortable when they start thinking outside of the system. This is them, and this is their weekend of letting it all hang out. This is their weekend of letting it all go. And, I mean, you can just look and you think, Christ, okay, these are not young people. Like, when I went to festivals and I was like 19 to like 23, 24, something like that. This is not those people. Like, if you just zoom in on any photo, you'll find the odd one or two young person. But like old. Like, I mean, maybe she's the youngest in her 30s. He's going to be in his 30s. He's going to be in his 40s. She's probably in her 30s. He's probably about late 30s. This guy's probably nearly 60. You know, like, they're just look around the side. Okay, there are some sort of like late 20s types. There are also a lot of older types. And again, just take any photo. Just like, right, this is... It's slightly younger than a reform rally, don't get me wrong. There are a few grey beards among them, but it's not exclusively grey beards. But what it is the white middle class. And this is where they go to be most comfortable among themselves and to be to properly express their culture. And I'm not even joking. And so this takes on certain aspects, because these people... There'll be an overrepresentation of Green voters, Liberal Democrat voters, and almost all of them at some point in their life will have voted for Labour, right? These people mostly came of age during the Tony Blair years, and so their moral compass is very fixed in utilitarian, progressive, liberal politics. This is what they think of the world, and they are class conscious in that they don't like the lower class, they don't like what Tommy Robinson represents, and they also don't like Jacob Rees-Mogg because he's more successful than them and better educated than them. And they, with their single like business degree or English literature degree or whatever it is, they feel insecure in the presence of someone like Jacob Rees-Mogg because they don't have the sort of depth of education that the average aristocrat had forced upon them when they were in school and went to university. And so these are there's a way of looking at them that you could frame them as strivers, because their parents and grandparents definitely were poorer than these people are, and definitely did have it more difficult than them on a material level, and definitely had a worse education than them. But the thing is, a lot of these people went to university when it was easy to get into university. And in fact, I was the first generation where it was really easy to get into university. And because Tony Blair was just trying to get as many people as he could through the university system. And these are the kinds of people that it produces. I mean, a good example is Helen Wilson, or she calls herself Helen from Wales, right? She's obviously not a young lady, and she was the one streaming to TikTok the kneecap performance that the BBC wasn't going to show because they were being investigated for terrorism charges. FYI, they had said, kill your local MP, and something like we love Hamas and Hezbollah, or something like that. And the court was like, yeah, no, they're not. That's not support for terrorism, and that is an incitement to terrorism. It's like, right, okay, that's interesting, because that really, I mean, kill your local MP is a bit strong, I would have thought. But okay, I mean, what do I know? I mean, I'm not a judge. But anyway, she was streaming kneecap's performance to TikTok, and she has something like 1.8 million views on it, so it's quite big. And Helen, as you can see, is probably older Gen X, probably not quite a boomer, but there's not going to be a huge difference. She's Helen from Wales. She's a vegan cafe owner from Swansea. So, see what I mean when I say these are bourgeois? Like, these people are people who have done very well out of the system. And she also was working at the festival with a sustainable waste management company. Right. So she's working for a company that's probably subsidized entirely by the government, right? You see what I mean when I say these people are a direct part of the system. They love the system. They are completely beholden to the system. They are the system. Like, this is the system expressing itself. And you can see by the age of the people that these are the same generation as me. These people are going to be in their mid to late 40s mostly. And they have nostalgic vibes and views from when they were young. And someone pointed this out. Didn't young people used to go to these festivals? Yeah, they did back in the 90s, where she watched Pulp, and she watched them again at Glastonbury this weekend. And this is exactly it. Weirdly, the cohort has not really changed all that much. They've just continually gone to Glastonbury. And actually, and I've got some more granular statistics we'll go through in a minute. But mostly it's that kind of person who just wanted to sit around, smoke weed, and enjoy the end of history. And it's like, okay, but history's kind of caught up with us, hasn't it? You know, have no responsibilities, just chill at this festival and watch middle-class bands. It's like, yeah, sure, I mean, I'm not against you doing this or anything. But I think it's very interesting how this then ties to radical progressive politics. Because what I'm describing at the moment are people who are categorically not radicals, right? These are people who are dependent on the system. The system is everything to them because they work in it. They work with the government-funded sustainable waste management companies and stuff like this. Like, these people are the system. And so they're not revolutionaries. So how is it we end up with revolutionary politics at Glastonbury? How is this possible? And the answer is because of the liberal morality inside of them is living on it creates a series of contradictions within them, that their reality is in direct contradiction to their professed morality. And so something has to give, right? So I've written this. To people like this, cheering for Bob Villain has a purgatorial purpose. They have heard the leftist criticisms of the system, and they agree with them in principle. However, they see the system up close, and it isn't actually designed to oppress minorities. It is, in fact, barely coping. As in, if you look around, the system is creaking at the edges. It's not here to systematically oppress black people. Right? It's not here to systematically oppress Muslims or women or trans people. The system is barely still functioning at this point. And so the idea of giving it a kind of villainous intentionality, which of course Bob Villain would do, is really overstating the capacity of the system. And so, I mean, this is one of the reasons why now they just outsource it. Well, it's Israel and Palestine, isn't it? You're not getting your country back. And it's like, right, okay. So you've got this creaking shite managerial system, and now you're just complaining about things that are happening overseas. But the point being is that they know they're good people and they live within the system, but they're convinced that there has to be, because they are, of course, inveterate blank slaters. All people are the same in all aspects everywhere on Earth because of evolution, and this means that any imbalance or inequality in the system has to simply be down to prejudice. And so, but they're looking around and going, right, okay, but I'm not prejudiced. I don't see anyone being prejudiced around me. In fact, anyone seems to be really nice to minorities and seems to give them as much as they can give them every day. So what do? Well, when Villain says things like, you aren't getting your country back, the minority is taking over, shut up, suck it, whatever it is, what they experience is a rush of cathartic feelings, right? They know, the people here know, the system was designed by and for middle-class English white people, and they themselves are the beneficiaries. They're going to be on about 50k a year, probably on average, somewhere between 40 and 50k a year. Not great, but enough to have a nice, comfortable life, right? And, with their partners, and most of them are married or have a long-term relationship. So the household's got probably about 100k a year coming into it. So they live a nice, comfortable life. And they know they are. And they are liberals, but they're not necessarily the most extreme sort of woke version. But they've heard these arguments. They accept the legitimacy of them. They go, yeah, okay, what can we do? We'll have LGBT Pride Month. We'll have Black Lives Matter stuff everywhere. Because we want to do our part, but we're not going to sacrifice our position in the system, right? They won't change. They won't give up their privileges. So the contradiction between their progressive politics and their own affluent status builds up this kind of negative energy inside themselves. The guilt of being the thing that is being criticized by the left. Very much the call coming from within the house here, right? They're all like, yeah, we're all good people. And the non-white activists come along going, no, you're not. And they're like, God, you're right, I'm not. And so they feel guilty of it. And this is why you get so much like Just Stop Oil protesting and things like this. There's always it's the same demographic who go to Just Stop Oil protests that also go to Glastonbury. And you notice that this is about how they feel inside themselves. So, and this is something they do regularly, is having a brown guy on the stage to denounce the white system as evil, and for them to cheer along and say, yeah, fuck the system, bro, allows them to purge these guilty feelings in this, as I've put it, this giant spectacle of pent-up emotion. Right? The catharsis is them denouncing all of the evils that they themselves are a party to as agents of the system, and they're just going to be back at work on Monday. They're going to clock in. They don't even clock in. They've got flexi time, right? But they'll just walk in on their flexi time and just be like, yeah, wow, great weekend. Oh, banging. I loved Kneecap, bro. Well, they won't say I love Kneecap, bro. So, I thought Kneecap was superb. I can't believe the BBC didn't broadcast these terrorists. But thank God for Helen from Wales. I know that a load of people I know all watched her on TikTok. I mean, these people had never heard of Kneecap before, but they understood that Kneecap was somehow politically significant and sticking it to Keir Starmer. The same with Bob Villain here. Like, they'll not have heard of this guy. Like, he's got 21,000 subscribers on YouTube. They don't know who he is, but they know that he is symbolic and totemic and representative. Here is the brown person who will tell you that your country is evil. And so they can go, yes, God, yes, I live with this all day, every day. We're doing so well. The minorities aren't doing so well. God, I feel so good to finally be amongst like-minded people and get it out. And this is why they're all so thrilled about this. And they do this basically every year. You might remember in 2019, Stormzy was their brown, Britain-hating guy where he turned up with a stab vest, as if somehow the middle classes that go to Glastonbury are in any way responsible for Stormzy's community having an epidemic of knife crime and stabbings, right? None of these people have ever been punched in the face. None of these people have ever have had a broken nose because some prick has punched them, right, in the middle of the street or whatever. None of it, right? These are the soft-handed middle class who abhor violence in all ways. And so they get Stormzy up. Honestly, right, in many ways, this is kind of like a minstrel show, right? This whole thing is white liberal politics being projected through a non-white person. Like, for example, this guy, right? Everything he said, all of this woke nonsense. I'm woke, free Palestine, fuck Britain. I know he's not the author of these thoughts because I know the people who are the authors of these thoughts. And a lot of the time, they are white people. And so it's like, look, I know that you didn't come to these conclusions yourself because the language, the terminology you use is very specific. And I'm not saying the motive is the same or whatever, but like, I know that he didn't come up with this. So he is projecting the most radical fringe of their own politics, white liberal politics, back at them. And so, like I said, it takes on the kind of aspect of a minstrel show where they're like, yep, the crowd is almost entirely white. We're going to get a bunch of diverse acts up to tell us how bad white people are, how bad Britain is, how bad, everything that we've ever done is, the British Empire, imperialism, Ireland, Israel. And this allows them to essentially go through a kind of religious ritual. As I wrote, they do this every year, and Glastonbury has become a kind of white progressive ritual site where they expunge the guilt of their own existence. They are good people, even though the system they maintain is responsible for all the world's evils according to their own beliefs. And so they go through this kind of ritual outpouring of emotion, and then they go back to work. Then they go back to upholding the system because they know that actually the alternative to the system is probably barbarism, right? What's this guy? What kind of system is this guy going to create? What kind of system is Stormzy going to create? The alternative is, frankly, to just go to something that is just genuinely abhorrent, that has, no rule of law, no police, no courts, no judges, no property protection, no security, no safety, no comfort, no middle-class existence. And so they're gonna uphold this system until the end of days, right? Until the system literally is on fire around them. And even then they'll say, right, okay, we need to go back to work, guys. Like the middle-class white progressive will never turn on the system itself. And so I ended it with this. There's no rebellion from people like this. They perform this rite to be able to live in the comfortable drudgery of their own lives whilst knowing that, by their own standards, they are superior to the global south. The contradiction continues, and they will see you next year. They won't actually see them next year because every couple of years they take a year off for the field or something. So actually it's 2027 is the next one, just in case you were thinking of going. But the point is, it's confirmatory to their own position. Say, oh yeah, look how well we're doing. We're the superior white liberal. Look how badly the brown person on the stage is doing as a representative of his broader community and all non-white communities everywhere. Oh God, that's terrible. Oh, get those feelings out. Flush them out together as they say, you're never going to get your country back. Fuck the system. Fuck the IDF. Fuck this. Fuck that. Fuck the other. And it's like, right, okay, get it all out, guys, because you're going to go back to work on Monday and we'll see you again next year. This is the entire point of the Glastonbury Festival now. This is what it is for. It is to make sure they can continue being liberals without having to make any substantive change at all.